Hi, and welcome to Math for All's teaching nugget on factoring quadratics when a does not equal 1. Let me mention first of all what we mean by a not equaling 1. When we see numbers in front of these guys here like this, that's when we need to use this video to factor. I think you're really going to enjoy these little tricks on how to do these. Let's get started. If we're asked to factor 5x squared plus 21x plus 4. This is what we're going to do. Remember, when we factor normally, we go ahead and draw an x. That part's going to be the same for this one. Here's where things kind of change first. Instead of just writing down this number here at the end to find out what they need to multiply to equal, we need to multiply the A and C term, or you could just say the first and the last terms from our quadratic. So if we have 5 times 4, that's just 20. That goes here. We're still going to figure out things that multiply now to equal 20. Then remember, we have to have things that add to equal 21. That'll go down right here. We'll just put a plus there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the 20, and we're just going to list the factors and get ones that add up to 21. We know that there's 20 times 1 and 2 times 10 and finally 4 times 5. When we take a look at these, we notice that all of our things that have to add up and multiply are positive, so we know we're dealing with all positive numbers here. And I can see right away that we have this 20 and the 1 that will multiply, to equal 20 and add to equal 21. I'll go ahead and put those here. 20 goes here and 1 goes here. Now, if you've watched my previous video, you would think that maybe we're done and we're done factoring now, but we're not. This is where things get a little bit strange, but it's actually pretty cool how it works out. So stick with me on this one. Now, remember our trouble number here was this 5 in the front. It was when the A does not equal 1. Remember, he is trouble, and he's the one that we're going to go ahead and put on the top up here. Remember, this is just a trick and a simplified way of factoring these guys, and they work out pretty cool. So you put this 5 that's in the front, and you put him on top of both of the factors that you figured out. Now, we are going to take a look, and we're going to think of them as fractions and see if any of them can be reduced. Remember that from a long time ago? At least one of these is going to have to reduce every time. That's just the way it works out. So if it doesn't, then something went wrong. I notice here that this 5 and this 20 are both divisible by 5. I'm going to go ahead and I kind of go equal and then go backwards. And I divide the 5 by 5, I get a 1, and the 20 divided by 5 is a 4. Okay, things are looking good. This 5 and this 1, that can't reduce anymore. Now, this is giving us the recipe for how this is going to factor. The top numbers here are the x values that start in the front, and then the bottom numbers are basically the numbers. Let me tell you how this works. We start our parentheses just like we did before, and this 1 tells me that I have 1x. So I'll just put an x here, and this bottom number with the 4 tells me that I have a 4 here. Okay, now I go over to this side. The top number again tells me my x, so this one is actually a 5x here, and then the 1 is the number, and so I have 5x plus 1. You can see once again how this gave me the recipe to factor this. Great job sticking with it. Let's do another example. We have 6x squared minus x minus 2. Let's remember the steps and what we need to do. Go ahead and draw our x, and don't just put this negative 2 on the top. We're going to multiply the first and last terms, keeping that negative sign with it. So we have a 6 times a negative 2 gives me a negative 12 here. We're going to have things that multiply to equal him. And the middle term here is just going to be basically a -1. We have things that are going to add to equal -1. Let's go ahead and list out some factors. And so if we have 12 here, we know that we have 12 times 1, 6 times 2, and 4 times 3 here. We know that when we have things that multiply to equal a negative number, one is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. Let's think about what we need to add up to equal, and they need to add up to be a -1. And I can see that this 4 and this 3 here are right next to each other. And this -1 dictates that the 4 is what has the negative sign in the front. Since he's bigger, they add up and they will equal -1. Our factors are -4 and 3, but we're not done yet. We'll go ahead and we take trouble child over here, the 6, and we put him on top of both of these. Then remember, this isn't the recipe yet. We have to reduce any of these fractions that can be reduced, and this time both of them can be. Go ahead and put my equal sign here. Both of those are divisible by 2. I get a 3 on the top, and -4 divided by 2 is a -2. Go ahead and keep that negative sign on the bottom because it helps us with our recipe when we go ahead and write out the factored form. This one with the 6/3 we know is going to be a 2, and we're going to keep that 1 on the bottom once again for our recipe. Okay, go ahead and write it out. We'll use these guys as our factors. Remember, the top dictates my x and the bottom is the number. So we have 3x here, and then we're reading down and we get a -2. Starting another parentheses. Over on this side, this is my x and this is my number, so this is going to be 2x plus 1. This is the factored form of 6x squared minus x minus 2. I hope you enjoyed this video on factoring quadratics when a doesn't equal 1. This may be a little bit different than how your teacher explains it, but I love this method. It works every time, and it's actually pretty fun. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time as we learn more about math.